Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mark Stoops, the Kentucky Wildcats, continue the momentum in the transfer portal, landing another commitment from former Georgia linebacker Jamon Dumas-Johnson. And not only are you getting a phenomenal linebacker, a guy that heading into this season was on first-team All-American list, you're also getting a true leader of the defense, right? And Georgia fans will be the first ones to tell you this is a guy that it hurt to see him leave this program. And Jamon Dumas-Johnson coming over to Lexington is going to be a stalwart in that defense, especially losing a guy like Trevin Wallace to replace him with a linebacker the quality of Jamon Dumas-Johnson. Just a masterclass by Mark Stoops. And what you're seeing Mark Stoops and this Kentucky staff do is take a look at this roster and say, all right, we're in a good spot. Where can we kind of elevate this roster? They've identified the players and positions they wanted to target, and they're just getting it done, getting these guys on campus, getting them committed. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, just a phenomenal get, one of the best linebackers in the country. Really excited to get into Jamon Dumas-Johnson, talk a little bit about the transfer portal haul for the Kentucky Wildcats. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. A shout out to the Kentucky fans. This has been a program that we've talked a ton about the last couple of weeks, right? Jamori Macklin, Brock Vandergriff, Raymond Cottrell, Trip Trainum. You guys have shown a ton of support to the boys. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content and you enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't sound like Mark Stoops is finished yet in the transfer portal, so we'll continue to keep you guys updated with all the roster moves. But let's get into Jamon Dumas-Johnson. And the first thing I want to talk about with Jamon Dumas-Johnson, this is a guy that's just played in the SEC at an extremely high level. And whenever you get a chance to get a linebacker that's been in the room of the Georgia Bulldogs, you want those kind of guys in your roster. And let's just give credit where it's due. Georgia has done better than any other team in the country in terms of developing linebackers, putting them on all SEC lists, all American lists, and then into the NFL draft. And so to get a linebacker that spent 3 seasons in Athens, you know you're getting a dog. Like, you know you're getting a really good linebacker. And you take a look at the production of Jamon Dumas-Johnson during his career, 125 tackles, 17 tackles for a loss, 9.5 sacks. And I love how Georgia uses their linebackers. Like, these guys go downhill, they take on blocks, they shed blocks, and they make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. Like, this is an aggressive linebacker core for Georgia, and you're hoping Jamon Dumas-Johnson can bring that to Lexington. Getting into Jamon Dumas-Johnson, some of the things that I like from what I've seen from him: one, hammer against the run. Again, downhill, can take on blocks. He kind of represents the ability to not only take on blocks and kind of play within the tackle box, but also a guy that can go sideline to sideline and operate in space. And it is hard to find linebackers that can provide value in both of those departments. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, certainly one of those. Against the run, 12 run stops in 2023, obviously battling an injury. In 2022, this was one of the best linebackers in the country, 24 run stops. You take a look at his average depth of tackle, 3 yards down the field. And this is a linebacker that doesn't move backwards. I mean, he is moving forward. He's taking on blocks, and he's making plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. That's probably what I like most about Jamon Dumas-Johnson. A sneaky other part of his game that I don't think people will talk enough about, but Kentucky fans are certainly going to see this in 2024. He's an elite blitzer. Just like a lot of those Georgia linemen, I don't have to tell Kentucky fans. They've seen enough Georgia football in terms of these linebackers. They get sent on blitzes a lot, and Jamon Dumas-Johnson was one of the best in the game at blitzing. In 2022, when he was fully healthy, a 17% pass rush win rate. That is higher than most elite edge defenders. And you take a look at the hurries, 17 hurries. So the guy that's had 9.5 sacks during his career, he allows the defense, he kind of allows you to be really creative in how you're going to use him, right? He can match up in man coverage with the running back out of the backfield or carry a tight end up the seam. He also can get downhill and put pressure and kind of impact the quarterback in terms of in the pocket. So you're getting a linebacker that can do it all. You're getting a leader in the middle of that defense. And again, one of the best linebackers across the country. Now, you take a look at what Kentucky's doing in this transfer portal class. This is kind of where it gets special. Like, you see a lot of teams just grabbing bodies to the transfer portal and kind of just trying to fill in a roster. Kentucky's grabbing bodies. They're grabbing high-quality bodies that people, like a lot of other Power 5 teams wanted, but more importantly, supplementing where they saw weaknesses in their depth chart, right? Starting with Jamon Dumas-Johnson, you're losing one of the better linebackers that we saw last year in Trevin Wallace. What's the best way to replace an experienced, phenomenal linebacker like Trevin Wallace? Just bringing in another one. from the University of Georgia and Jamon Dumas-Johnson. You take a look at the wide receiver play, a position that I already thought was pretty good, right? Barry and Brown, Dane Key, really dynamic two guys there. You're just getting that better, right? Jamori Macklin, another guy that a lot of other programs wanted in the transfer portal. You go head to head with a lot of top programs, land one of the more clean route runners in this class. You lose at the running back position. Ray Davis was phenomenal. You get a guy like Chip Trayanum, who we've talked about him. I'm a massive fan of Chip Trayanum. I think he reminds me a lot of Chris Rodriguez and how Chris Rodriguez ran that football extremely hard, always falling forward. Kentucky wants to get back to a little bit more physicality and running the football. Chip Trayanum is one of those guys you want toting the rock 20, 25 times per game. You continue to scroll down, obviously, Raymond Cottrell, big fan of him. And then Brock Vandergrift, right? I mean, Devin Leary, the Devin Leary experiment, so to speak, didn't go as planned for a lot of Kentucky fans. You go out and get what is one of the more talented quarterbacks in all of college football. Although we haven't seen him play a ton of college football yet, there is no doubt in my mind, again, 3 years at the University of Georgia, you're getting a quarterback that's going to know how to win a lot of football games. And you get people kind of critiquing Brock Vandergrift, hasn't played much football. Well, he's sitting behind one Stetson Bennett, who won back-to-back national titles, and then Carson Beck, who probably could have been a top 50 NFL draft pick had he wanted to declare for the NFL draft. The fact that Brock Vandergrift hasn't played much football is not necessarily concerning me. So you look at Mark Stoops and his ability to bring in high-impact guys through the transfer portal. That's hard to do. There's a lot of talent in the transfer portal, but it's really hard to bring in pretty much exclusively all starters to this Kentucky program. I mean, all of these guys that you see, Jamori Macklin, Chip Trayanum, Raymond Cottrell, Brock Vandergrift, Bo Allen, I don't think will be a contributor to Kentucky, but nice depth in the quarterback room. You are getting guys that are going to be immediate impact makers for this Kentucky team in 2024. And there is a strong argument to make that Jamon Dumas-Johnson, probably the best one they've brought into the transfer from the transfer portal yet. Kentucky fans know it's been a very fun last couple of weeks. This team has gotten much better in the last couple of weeks in terms of what they're looking like in 2024. We'll see if it continues. Kentucky, very, very hot on the transfer portal. Wildcat fans, Big Blue Nation, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas again. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.